Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm so excited to bring to you someone that I have been following for quite some time, Mr. Glenn Lundy. Welcome. He
Good
is,
morning.
if you see his shirt, the number 8 really means a lot to him, and we're
Oh
going to
yeah.
talk about why that is. But this is a man who's a very successful businessman. He's a man who is a best-selling author. He is a father of 8, a strong family man. And you would look at him and assume that he just woke up on the right side of the bed and things just fell into place for Mr. Glenn Lundy. But that is not the case, right, sir?
That is definitely not the case.
People say things just work themselves out. And I always say, oh, no, things don't just work themselves out. You do the work of working themselves out. So
That's right.
you talk about your story and how where you came from is a part of who you are and where you are today. In 2005, you didn't think your life was very worth living. So I want to hear about that moment and what happened to where you realized, oh, yes, it is, and what changed inside you.
Yeah, so I was just in a season of life back then, a season of life where, um, I was living a very Darwinistic life, is the way I like to describe it. So, survival of the fittest. If I could get over on you, that was your fault, not mine. And it was kind of all about me. And I was just, living that lifestyle for quite a while. And I burnt a lot of bridges, made a lot of mistakes, was in and out of jail multiple times. And I went into a season of homelessness. And through that homelessness, homelessness is it's just an awful. It's awful. It's not awful because you don't have food, you don't have money, or you don't have a place to lay your head. But it's awful because you become invisible, right?
Right.
So like no one will ever say your name, no one makes eye contact with you. It's just an awful experience. And so my homelessness ultimately led to hopelessness, and that hopelessness led to suicidal thoughts, and ultimately I attempted to drown myself in the Pacific Ocean. And thankfully God plucked me out of that ocean, and
He's good
said
at that.
he's good at that. And it was a God I didn't believe in on top of that, so it was pretty amazing. And breathed some words into me that resonate with me to this day. He said, you take yourself wherever you go. And when I heard those words, it made me reflect on the last 29 years of my life. And I realized I had lived in different cities, and I had different friend circles, and I had different jobs, but the result kept being the same. There was only one thing that was constant, which was me. I was the constant. So you take yourself wherever you go. I was like, oh, okay, that totally makes sense. So
Wow.
at that point, I realized I was the catalyst for not most, I was the catalyst for all the negative experiences that I was experiencing in life. And that raised the question, if I am the catalyst of all things negative, is it possible to be the catalyst for all things positive? And
Wow.
that sent me on this journey, right? I was like, where is this power even come from? Like, if we have the ability to be a catalyst of negative or positive things in our life, where does that come from? And so that sent me on a journey where I had to start to understand the spiritual side of myself. And ultimately, I came across, I studied a bunch of different religions and started studying spirituality, and ultimately came across this crazy guy named Jesus, and started reading this book, and ultimately found my path to spiritual understanding my spiritual self through the story of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, now it's been a journey, the last 20 years of figuring out what that looks like. And two incredibly different seasons, and grateful for both.
Wow. So we talked a little bit about this before we hopped on, is that it seems like there's a consistency. Talk about common denominators. There's a consistency in some of the strongest people I know, and some of the most energetic people are the ones that have overcome the most in their life. And there's something to be said for changing the trajectory and realizing the power of your decisions. So you began to seek, okay, maybe all this is, I've made these decisions. Maybe I can make these decisions. and begin to change that. So, there's a lot of people that don't, there's something about owning your past, and a lot of people just power through it. So, how important was it for you to be able to say, okay, step back? Some of this, all of this is on me, but all of this going forward is also on me. How important are those two blended to really become the man that you want to become? Or
Yeah, I
woman?
think that you have to. I studied, interestingly enough, when I was on this spiritual journey, I ended up studying Scientology for about 6 months. And when I was in Scientology, they shared this story. I was taking this class, and in the class, it said, if you are sitting at a stoplight and you get rear ended, who's responsible for that accident? And of course, the natural response is, I'm sitting at a stoplight. Somebody hit me. They're
There.
responsible. Very clear. It's their fault. And that's obviously the response. And in the class, what they taught us was, yes, you could look at it that way, and that's absolutely justified. Or you could say, well, if I would have left the house 5 minutes earlier, I would not have been at that light. If I would have left the house 5 minutes later, I would have not have been at that light. If I would have turned left instead of right, or right instead of left, I would not have been at that light. If I would have been maybe watching the rear view mirror versus looking at whatever I was looking at, I maybe could have seen the car coming, right? Like, and it doesn't take away from, there are victims and there are experiences that are just out of our control, right? Like, those things happen. And we have family members that were in a really bad, this exact situation, really bad. And I'm not blaming them in any way, shape, or form, but it's a way that we can look at life to where we can take control of situations versus allowing ourselves to be the victim of the situation. And so when I learned that, 20 years ago, it really became embedded in me that I look at everything now and I say, okay, I had something to do with this, whether I like it or not. I had something to do with this. And if that is always going to be the case, then I can direct my life in a way that ultimately the result is going to be something that I'm happy about, or that benefits, me, my family, my community, so on and so forth. So shifting that perspective from it's their fault to I had some responsibility in this has been literally the catalyst for all of my ability to go from homeless, depressed, and in and out of jail to business owner, best-selling author, husband to one, father to eight, all of those things.
So, you do the rise and grind, and you talk about the morning routines and
Yeah,
productivity, but I want you to just explain a little bit the difference in faith and productivity, because a lot of people think just let God do all that, let go, let God. That's all true. God does a lot of things for us,
sure.
but what about the responsibility that we have to take the gifts God has given us and to use those? Because we can't just sit back and twiddle our thumbs and hope, people come knocking on our door and say, opportunity has arrived.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people that don't understand the blend of faith and productivity? Because both are very much at work, but you still got to do the work, right?
Well, I mean, there's a very clear parable in the Bible, the parable of the talents.
Yes.
And, for those that don't know or haven't read that particular parable, there's a landowner, and he gives a certain amount of money to three different employees, basically, and tells them to go off into the market and take that money and do something with it, and he'll be back in a certain period of time. And so he leaves, and they all three treat the money differently. So one of them goes into the market and doubles the money. The second one goes into the market and doubles the money. And then the third one says, well, I'm afraid that if I lose this money, the landowner is going to get mad at me. And so he buries the money. And when the landowner comes back, he goes to the first guy and says, what do you do? He says, I doubled the money. And the landowner says, okay, great. I'm going to give you more responsibility. You did a great job. And the second guy says, hey, I doubled the money. He says, great. I'm going to give you more responsibility. You did a good job. And then the third guy says, I buried the money. And the landowner says, how dare you? How dare you take the gifts and talents that I've given you and bury them and not take them into the market? So then he takes those away and gives them to the first guy who went out and did what he was supposed to do. And so that parable tells me about God. And it tells me that God did not give us gifts, talents, opportunities. He doesn't give us those things so that we can go bury them in the backyard. He gives us those things because he wants us to work them. He wants us to put them into play. He wants us to be productive, be in motion, take action, take risks, challenge ourselves, right? I believe that God experiences himself through us. And so he doesn't want us to just lay like a bump on a log, right? He ultimately wants us to go out there and be the best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be.
And let's talk about those best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be. You know,
Yeah.
I often say that an identity crisis could be the best thing that ever happened to you, because if you start asking the questions, okay,
Sure.
who am I and what am I to do? Then you got to answer those questions. And you talk about unlocking your full potential, not just your potential, but your full potential, which means if you have to unlock it, there's things that lock it. What are the things that typically lock people from understanding the power of that potential?
The prison is in the mind, Beth.
Yes, it is.
The prison is in the mind. We all do
Oh,
a phenomenal job of creating our own prisons. And what's amazing is we are not just in the prison, we're also the guards of the prison, and we take pride in our prisons. And most of us don't even realize that it is a prison because
yes.
we've built it up. And this can be true with our jobs. This can be true with our relationships. This can be true with our homes. I've opened this new company, and I can't tell you how many messages I get from people that say, oh my gosh, I would give absolutely anything to come work for your organization. If only I lived in Kentucky.
Yeah.
If only I didn't this, if only I didn't that, if only, right? And I'm like, dude, those are all prisons of the mind. Like, you can move anytime you want. You are not a tree. You can uproot and leave at any
Hmm.
time
Make
you
like a
want.
tree and leave, right?
That's right. You can absolutely do that. And so the prisons are all in the mind. And in order, that's why I say we have to unlock that, right? Because just like a prison, you got to have a key to get the doors open so that you can move towards freedom and get out of that prison. And we all have all these different things that we need to unlock. And what's interesting about life is there are keys to unlock all of those doors, but they're scattered all about the universe, right? They're scattered all over the place. And sometimes you're going to find a key in a good book. Maybe you'll find a key in a song. Maybe you'll find a key in a relationship with someone you meet on an airplane. Maybe you'll find a key by traveling to Italy and experiencing what it's like to be in another culture, right? The key might be in doing work you don't want to do, or a job that necessarily doesn't appeal to you, but it can unlock what you need in that future season of life. So the keys are scattered out all over, kind of like infinity stones in the Avengers. And you got to go out there and find them so that you can ultimately unlock these prison doors that we have in our minds.
But in order to do that, you have to know there's prison doors and you have to
Yep,
be looking for those keys.
no doubt.
And you have to be able to say, that that principle right there can change my life. And then you have to be able to take that, bring it home, and use it and put it to work for you. And I think that's so well said. So let's talk about the morning grind. Let's talk about your morning routines, because
Yeah.
you're a big believer that this
Oh, yeah.
a game changer, and I am so with you there. What is it that's so important about that morning routine that sets apart your day, that sets apart your week, your month, and your life? Because that's critical to establish that right mindset each day, right?
Yeah, I don't know why it works so well. I don't know exactly, why God created us the way that He created us in the sense that this thing works. But here's what I do know: that when I study successful people, all of the most successful people on this planet have a powerful morning routine. Every single one of them. They
It's
have
true.
some sort of routine that they tap into every single day, that allows them to tap into mind, body, and spirit. Now, these routines are all different, and they're even different times of day, right? Beyonce, for example, when I studied Beyonce, Beyonce performs at night. Her concerts are at night. They go late. So her schedule's a little different. So she might not wake up until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because of her job. And I know there's people that work third shift and so on and so forth. But the key is, what do you do in that first hour to 2 hours when you wake up? That's what morning routine means to me. A lot of times people get it confused and think you have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning like I do. No, that's just what works for me, right? But it's, what do you do in that first hour or two when you wake up? And so as I was studying successful people, I found that they all have some sort of routine, taps into mind, body, spirit. It's usually something that includes some sort of exercise, that includes some sort of prayer or meditation, that includes some sort of fuel, education, book reading, absorbing of material or content. And so I went through and I tried out a bunch of different things to figure out what worked for me, right? Like the cold shower thing. Some people swear by the cold shower. Cold shower is not my jam. I am a tropical person. It is not for me.
Me either.
There's health benefit. I can do a cold plunge as long as I can get into a hot shower after. I can do that. But I'm not starting my day with a cold shower. It puts me in a negative state of mind, not a positive state of mind. I don't like it, so I don't do it, right? But there are things that I found I really do love.
Yeah.
Never hitting the snooze button is important to me. It's the first win of the day. No phone first thing in the morning, no emails, no text messages, no social media, none of that stuff. I do not want my mind to be persuaded or polluted by the outside world, right? Then I go into gratitude and goals. I write down the things that I'm grateful for and the things that I'm reaching for. And I believe a lot of people miss this. I think I read a study that like 87% of people know that they should write their goals every day, but less than 7% of people actually do.
Wow.
Why is that? Well, I think that when I first started writing goals and I didn't do gratitude first, writing goals actually became a deprecating experience for me. It was like, oh, I wish I had a bigger house. Oh, I wish I had more money. Oh, I wish I had this. I was better looking. I wish I was in better shape, right? Like when I was writing those goals, it made me feel less than. It actually created like a negative energy. So now I start with gratitude. I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I'm alive today and my limbs can move and my body functions. I'm grateful that my bills are paid. And I'm going to go get a bigger house and I'm going to go make more money.
Yeah.
Right? So the gratitude fuels the goals, whereas goals by themselves, in my experience, actually could be a little bit deprecating. So I go into that. Then I do whatever exercise, whether it's running or Peloton, or sometimes I just do yoga, stretching, whatever. An object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. So we just get the body moving. And then the fifth piece of my morning routine, which is my favorite, is now that I've created this energetic space where I'm tapped in mind, body, and spirit, now I'll send out encouraging messages. So I send out 5 messages a day, whether it's a text, whether it's a Facebook message, a sticky note on the mirror for my wife. I release the positive energy out into the universe, which ultimately has benefits for those that receive it and for me, because it's always an amazing experience. So yeah, morning routine. I don't know exactly why it works, but I know it works. And the research and the studies show that it's incredibly impactful, and it has been in my life. Every single day I go through those 5 steps, and it's made a massive difference.
So let's talk about you're a very big influencer. You leverage your story to influence others to impact their story. But a lot of people don't have a sense of identity. And, it's kind of like you get on social media and you're like, well, I think I'm going to go do that.
Sure.
Or they did that, it worked for them, so I'm going to go do that. How do you keep the wall? Okay, you keep the walls wide open, yes. But how do you keep, okay, I'm Glenn Lundy today, and this is what Glenn Lundy does and doesn't do. And how do you remain true to that? Because a lot of people struggle with who they are. And that's a
Yeah.
big problem.
Yeah, for sure. Getting clear on your identity, who are you is
Yes.
like a big question that you need to answer. And the way you answer that question will ultimately determine the outcome of your life. So it's really important to get clear. Now, I do understand that we all have identity issues at some point in our lives, determining who we are. Environmental things play into that, how we were raised plays into that, so on and so forth. So I have found that everyone at some point in their life, had a moment where they didn't feel like they belonged. And so understanding your identity is a challenging thing, and we all figure it out at different seasons, I think. And what's interesting about identity is your identity can shift.
They
Who I
can.
am as a 46-year-old man is a completely different identity than who I was as a 26-year-old man. Different priorities, different things that I wanted with my life, and that's okay. And so getting clear on your identity is crucially important. And then once you're clear on that, making decisions that align with who you are and being able to say no to the things that don't align with who you are really can help keep you on the path, right? Keep you on the path of growth and expansion. I know that I've finally figured out over all these years that God put me on this earth to bring people together, equip them with the tools they need to succeed, and inspire them to be great. I can do that by leveraging my gifts of motivation, education, and inspiration. I'm pretty good with my tongue. I can talk pretty well. So I leverage my gifts, but I stay in that lane, bring people together, equip them with the tools they need to succeed, and inspire them to be great. So all of my content fits right in there too, right? I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
post content that divides people because that doesn't bring people together. I
Right.
don't post content that's not valuable in some sense, because then I'm not equipping people with the tools they need to succeed. And I don't post content that's going to do the opposite of inspiring people. I'm always looking to inspire. That's my wheelhouse. So knowing those three things about myself really help that content. And also for me, I learned a long time ago that I'm not creating content for everyone. I am creating content so that the people that God can use me to evolve can find me, right? A lot of times people say, well, how do you share that stuff? I'm like, well, if I hide who I am, then the one person who's looking for me can't find me. If you hide who you are, the person that you can impact the most, they can't find you because they don't know that you were homeless at some point. They don't know that you struggled with alcohol. They don't know that. So your hiding is actually keeping them from your helping. You can't help them if they can't find you. And so once I kind of realized that, I'm like, okay, I need to be me so that others that need me can find me. I got to make it easier for them to find me, right?
Yeah.
And it's just amazing what God will do in your life when you're clear on who you are and then authentic about who that person is. And you are, and your testimony can then not just influence or impact, but ultimately imprint on other people's lives in a powerful way.
And that's so true because the authenticity of which you share your story always brings in all of you, because
Right.
you don't ever forget where you came from. And so other people realize if you've overcome all what you've overcome, it definitely says they can too. So, and that's a powerful message. So let's talk about that dealership that you took over.
Yeah.
Um, and within 5 years, you had 800% growth. All right, what
Yes.
did you do? What did you do? Because that's a lot of growth in a short amount of time, and that is a story worth sharing. And I know you wrote it in a book, but I want to talk about,
Yeah.
I mean, that was talk about grind. You had to work hard. You had to hire good people. You had to build a team. You had to lead. You had to really strategize about how you were going to do that, but you did it. So what do you tell someone? Okay, you got to turn the ship around. Here's how you do it.
So interestingly enough, it starts by changing the way you start your day. So
Yeah.
that was the first thing that we did. Is what's true for the individual is also true for the masses. So in our business, I had a good morning routine as an individual, so we had to teach a business morning routine. So our business morning routine was doing the same thing, tapping into mind, body, and spirit in a positive way. So every day at 8:30 a.m., we had a powerful morning meeting. And that morning meeting followed a process that I called the lead process. So we listen, encourage, advise, and develop. And we do it daily. LEADD. Listen, encourage, advise, and develop, and do it daily. So all of our meetings follow that process. Very high energy, energetic. We celebrate people and encourage the behaviors we want to see more of, advise people of areas of growth and opportunity, and then also develop people, right? So by following that process, just by changing the way we started our day, immediately we started to see massive results within the company once we are able to align our people that way. So it started there. And then I would say the biggest overall thing is what I've learned about business is a lot of times if you follow the process of the business, the entrepreneur, right? It's usually need money, want money, gonna make money, start making some money. Then we're like, okay, we're making some money, we're selling a product. Okay, great. We've got these customers. Now we need more customers, because if we can get more customers, we can make more money, right? So then we're like doing everything we can to get more customers. And then once we get more customers, we're like, oh, we need to hire some people to help us with these customers so that we can make more money, right? That's kind of the natural progression of most businesses. So what we did is we flipped that upside down. And I said, you know what? What if we worry about the people that work for us first? Let's make that the priority. Let's develop them. Let's grow them. Let's recruit them. Let's hire great people. Let's find them. Let's track them down. Let's put them in an environment where they become the best versions of themselves that they can possibly be. And interestingly enough, when you do that, they really do a phenomenal job of taking care of customers because they're in a great space themselves, and they start drawing in more customers. And then those more customers come in and they spend more money and you make more money. So it was really fascinating that instead of focusing on profit, then customer, then employee, we focused on employee, which led to more customers, which led to more profits. So just flipping it upside down and putting our people first. I'll sum it up with this. I believe in business that we should love our customers more than we love our products, but it's even more important that we love our people more than we love our customers.
That's so powerful because you find that, in the grind, people get in such a hurry. They don't, it's ready, fire, aim instead of ready, aim, fire. And so much business because people are just fighting the clock. But
Sure.
you've taken what you've learned, and now you're one of the leaders in the automotive industry and other industries as well with your books. And I saw you roller skating, and I'm like, he roller skates in front of a crowd. I'm like, because
Yes.
I love people to do different, and so you've done different, and I think that's what has really created that sense of self for you and for others, because people got to do what works, and that doesn't necessarily mean you did it because other people did it. You did it because you saw what needed to work for you, and now you teach that across the country. So
Sure.
that's an amazing thing. But I want to shift gears real quick because I don't want to lose the opportunity to talk about, you've got 8 kids.
I do.
You not only improved your business 800%, you have 8 kids, not 5, not 7, but 8. And you have a
Right.
happy wife.
Yes.
And so let's talk about that balance of family man and businessman, because, we need dads to be dads. And we need dads to raise up an army of kids that are ready to do kind of what you're doing, which is be productive, go out and make a difference in the world and bring
Right.
others up. How do you balance all of that? And what is your best goal for your kids to learn from your journey yourself?
Yeah. So ultimately, I'll start with the second part first. As far as my kids, I want my kids to truly know that they are free to walk in their authentic selves and they will be loved to the fullest. I'm not trying to push any of my children in any direction whatsoever. When I see a seed in them, I will try to fertilize that seed, right? Like if my son shows a lot of interest in soccer, then I'm gonna go out and do what we did, which is I went out and put a soccer field on our land. We've got 10 acres of land out there, right? So my daughter loves to travel and loves being in big groups and whatnot. And so I bring her with me when I go travel. I took her to Italy and places like that, right? So I will fertilize these seeds, these things that they care about as best I can, but I'm not directing any of it. I want them to know that they get to choose what path they want to go on. If they want to be in business, great, they can be in business. If they want to be, a speaker, they can be a speaker. If they want to stay at home like their mother, then they can stay at home like their mother, or anything in between. They're free to go out and choose. And so, to me, it's really important that my children know that dad loves them no matter what. And I just want them that I know that they are God's children more than they are my children, and they have a journey and path they have to go on. So that's important to me. As far as how do you balance all of that, I think the wrong word. I think balance is kind of the wrong word. So what I have found in life is that words have so much power and so much meaning, and a lot of times we use words that we don't necessarily understand what they are or how they're using them can ultimately affect us. So I'll give you an example, Beth. I was having a conversation with a gentleman, and he was telling me how he was getting ready to invest in this stock. And he was really excited because he just knew he was going to get a massive ROI. Then he told me about this business he was investing in, and he was super excited because he knew they were going to get a 5 times multiple. He was going to get a big old ROI on investing in this business. In the same conversation, he told me about this conference that he was investing in himself. And he was super excited. Every time I go to a conference, Glenn, I always come away with at least one thing that makes me better. So he was super excited about the ROI. Then in that same conversation, he also told me that he was going to spend some time with his kids. And he told me he was going to spend some time with his wife on a vacation. He was going to spend some time on vacation. And when I walked away from that conversation, I really was like, that's interesting. He was investing in all of these other things, but he was spending when it came to his family. So I looked up the definitions of the words. And when you look up the definition of the word invest, it is ultimately to transfer a certain amount of energy with the expectation of a return. That's in the definition. To spend is a negative, to take away from, to have less than. If I spend $5 out of my bank account, I have $5 less. If I invest $5, I expect to get $5 more, right? So, and I noticed I was speaking the same way. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna go invest in this thing. And then when it came to my family, I'd say I'm gonna go spend time with the kids. So once I realized, like, oh my goodness, okay, let's just eradicate the word spend from our vocabulary. Don't spend time on social media, invest time in social media. Don't spend
Yeah.
time with your kids, invest time with your kids. Don't spend time with your wife, invest time with your wife. And when you start to do that, or with your spouse, when you start to do that, your mind shifts from it changes your actions. So now your actions become something where you're looking for an ROI versus where you're just spending, right? So how do you balance? Well, once you change from spend to invest, once you change, my daughter Meredith just poked her head in the window. Once you
Hi,
change,
Meredith.
once you change from spend to invest, you start to realize, oh, wait, if I invest 5 minutes with Willow, my daughter Willow, if I invest 5 minutes with her right here, right now, that's about all she needs from dad to get an ROI. She'll run off. She's happy. She just wants to feel seen, heard, significant. 5 minutes a day, she's great. Joel, my son, requires a different investment. Got to be out there on the soccer field with him. He wants to ride with dad in the truck and go places and so on and so forth. Different investment to get an ROI. Same thing in my business. I need to invest in the marketing aspects of my business. I need to invest 2 hours a week being in front of my clients, but I don't need to invest 12 hours a day working on things that ultimately I don't get a return from, right? I only want to focus on the things where I can get an ROI, and I go into it with an expectation of an ROI. That way it changes my activities. So what I have found is when you invest in your faith, you invest in your family, you invest in your friends, you invest in your finances or with your finances, you invest in your career, you invest in your fitness, you invest in your education, and you invest in your mental health. When you invest in all the 8 areas of your life, you'll find that you have time for all of it, because they all take a different investment to get a return. 30 minutes a night with my wife watching Big Bang Theory, and she's happy as can be. I don't care about Bang Theory, but she loves it. So I'll
Yeah.
make that 30-minute investment, and in exchange, she never says, "Honey, you work too late. Honey, you work too much. Honey, you travel. Honey, she never says any of those things. As long as I get that 30 minutes a night of Big Bang Theory, she's happy as could be, right? So the key to me is to not try to balance, because balance, if you look up the definition, means equal. And
Yeah.
I don't need to invest equal time in every part of my business and equal time with every family member and equal time. We just have to do it in a way that we're getting a good return, and we can do it all.
That's so important because you're right. Balance is elusive, and it's like, yeah. But investing and understanding what that really means on the other end is so important. And so let's talk about one last thing, and that's a winning culture. I mean, there's so many things we
Sure.
could talk about, but culture is so important in a home, in a work. When people walk into a place, they immediately feel the atmosphere. How do you create that? Because a lot of people are like, man, I'm just so bored, and I just wish I could go work for Glenn Lundy, but he's in Kentucky. Kind of like what you said before.
Right.
But atmospheres are created and cultures are carefully crafted. And I think that people need to know they have the power to do that. So let's talk about creating a winning culture at home and at work, because I think that's so critical for people to know that's part of their potential that they can into.
Yeah, for sure. So, when it comes to your culture, your culture is the overall philosophies and beliefs of a group of people, right? That's what a culture is: the philosophies and beliefs of 3 or more, I think, is how it, when you start to look it up, the definition. And so knowing that, we have to go, okay, so what sets philosophies and beliefs? Well, usually most of these things come from the 5 different senses, right? What we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we taste, and what we feel, right? So all of these are what we smell. So all of these things come together to ultimately drive your culture. So what is it that people see when they walk into an environment? That matters. What do people hear when they walk into an environment? That matters. What kind of feeling do they have? That matters. What kind of smells are there? That matters, right? Like, all of these things matter. And so when we create, the companies like the dealership I'm creating now, we're thinking about all of those things. From when they look up, do they see stained ceiling tiles or clean ceiling tiles? Well, you think, oh, well, it's just one little ceiling tile. Nobody's looking up at the ceiling. Well, maybe they are. And if you've got a stained ceiling tile over here, you might have trashy stuff over here, right?
Right.
Restrooms, things that people don't think about. And women care a lot what's going on in the restroom, right? You want to make sure
Right.
it smells good in there and it's
Yep.
clean, those types of things. So, and then what type of music are you listening to in these environments? And what are the words that people are using and saying? If you're allowing people to be negative, if you're allowing people to be to degrade others, if you're allowing people to treat others as anything less than the children of God that they are, ultimately that is going to affect your culture. So I think the easiest way to look at it is, what do they see? What do they hear? What do they smell? What do they taste? What do they feel? And make sure that you're creating an environment that is conducive to growth, that is inspiring in all of those 5 areas. And then obviously there's layers that continue to build over time with your culture, but that's the easiest place to start, is with the 5 senses.
That's so well said, because, you
Thanks.
can't walk into a place and not see,
Right.
smell, taste, feel. I mean,
Right.
you can walk into a place and feel tension as quick as you can walk into a place and feel joy and happiness.
No doubt.
So you have books,
Yes.
you have resources,
Yes.
you are a walking encyclopedia of how to uh, figure out your own potential and your own self through your books. I think it's the legacy titles, Proven Principles, 12 Proven Principles. So not only have you made yourself available today to me, and I thank you so much,
Of
and you
course.
make yourself available via social media, you have so many resources available to people. So in the book, the legacy titles, people find the 12 principles, right? I mean, that's a book they can order if they're like, okay, I got all these questions, I need some answers. They can get your book and get those, correct?
Correct. Yep. Absolutely. Legacy titles, 12 proven principles to grow your business 800%. It's a fun book. I wrote it in parable style. As I mentioned earlier, I love parables. So we wrote it parable style to make it a fun read and easy read. It's filled with all kinds of fun information. And yeah, you can go get that. The Morning Five is another book that I wrote. That's a free ebook, the morning routine stuff. You can download that for free if you'd like. And obviously people can follow me wherever. GlennLundy.com's got links to all this stuff.
So final question, just
Yep.
final point. I want you to end on this. It's never too late to make that decision. It's never too late to adjust that attitude. It's never too late to change that perspective. It's never too late to reach for your dreams. That's true, right? I mean, you truly believe that anybody, anywhere, anytime can turn their life around and pursue that, unlock their potential, become the best version of themselves. Is that correct? It's never too late. Doesn't matter where you've been, where you come from. It matters what you do moving forward.
Yeah. If you're living and breathing, then you have the opportunity to make a choice to direct your life in whatever direction you want to go. Will it be easy? No, nobody said it's going to be easy. How long is it going to take? I don't know. Everybody's got a different
Your whole
journey.
life.
Might take a really long time.
All
I
right.
don't know the answer to that. But I do know that, just like a GPS system, in your car, that's not the right words, but just like when you're traveling, if you point north, you're going to go north. If you point south, you're going to go south. You point west, you're going to go west. You point east, you go east, or anywhere in between. And all you have to do to change that is point the opposite direction. So I do believe at any time you can make that choice, turn around and move in the opposite direction. And ultimately, over time, you'll end up far away from who you were.
Well, Glenn Lundy, I'm so excited that I got to talk to you and to hear some of your story
Yeah. Thank
that
you.
I had already learned about. I'm so excited that my son listens to you. He's 26, and I'm thankful for your influence. He is a car guy, and I'm just glad there's people like you that are out there that he can call me and say, Mom, you got to know about this guy. And then
That's
I
awesome.
follow. So thank you so much for sharing your honest, true story. You've overcome a lot, and you show that so can other people. And I think that's a message we all need to hear. So you keep doing what you're doing, sir. And I want to come to that podcast room. I will
Yeah.
drive to Kentucky. I
Okay.
will sit in that circle, and
sounds
we will
great.
do us a podcast. So I'll get in the car and I'll make that drive.
That
We'll
sounds
do that.
perfect.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you, sir, so much for being
All
here
right.
today. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.